This is the North End. This is the North End.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It is the North End, the last call live, renamed, sexier than ever, but still with the same unsexy faces. How we're doing it, we're not really sure, but we're going to throw it together. But we do have a special guest joining us this week, and it's great because we are going to tear into his team, I'm sure. But it's all good fun. It's all good fun. So let's get him in first. Ladies and gentlemen, the enigmatic, the beautiful Eric Bradstock.
Hey guys, thanks for having me again. Looking forward
Great
to
to
it.
see you. Yeah, no, I know. You're a busy man, Eric, and it's always great to get you along. You have to put up with almost daily abuse from JP about how he thinks your team is single-handedly to blame for things, and that's just JP. He's just got a lot of passion. So
Part of the job, right? Part of the job.
part of the job. Well, it's great having you. Obviously, talking of unfamiliar faces, but a face that you just can't help but love. David Convery, how are you, sir?
I'm just here to keep JP in check. This is my first show with Eric. Eric, great to finally put a face to a name, my man. But yeah, looking forward to it. Yeah, and JP's out of control. We need to address it.
He is. I don't know whether is school out for summer? Is that literally what it is?
Yeah, he's on an Alice Cooper tear.
It's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy. He is, but God, do we love him? Do we love him? And the man who makes it snow, JP California.
How are we, gents?
We are well. Anyways, before we get started, important things. JP, what's the weather? Give us the update.
It's warm. It is 80 degrees here. It's getting hot. Next week's supposed to be in like the high 80s. I'm about to melt. I'm in my garage because my fiance is using our office space. So I'm like making it happen, and it is like warmer in here than I'd like. It's pretty diabolical right now. So
fair enough.
What's the AC situation? Like I need to have it cold all the time. Like what's the AC situation out there?
Like my place is set up to 74 degrees, but I'd say only 4/5 of all households actually have AC in Southern California. Unless you're like in the desert. The desert,
What?
Yeah, everybody has it in the desert. Yeah. Like my parents don't have AC. They got like one of those little window units, and it like does one living room, and that's it. Like when it's 100, they just open up the house at night, drops down to like 75 degrees, and they're like, "Oh, it'll get nice," and it's miserable. I hate it, but
That's
not
gonna
the
cut
place
it.
we're at. Yeah, like I don't let it drop below 70 at my house like ever. It's just always there.
Yeah, I'm
We're
70
68
standard,
here.
man.
We're
Yeah.
68
Yeah.
in my house.
68 or 70, and that's no higher. I'll go nuts.
Yeah.
I will. I need it cold.
This soccer content is amazing right now.
Yeah,
just
like and
one
subscribe. Like and subscribe.
Please.
Could we be more problematic? A bunch of white men chatting about the thermostat. Good Lord. There's
First-
no jokes out there.
First world problems.
Liam, oh my goodness, Liam, I am so sorry for you, dude. That is not the way to start your week and coming up. But I hope you get better, dude.
Oh, he does. Connie, just FYI, I have muted you. There's a bit of a buzz on yours, so in between you chatting.
It is
I'll let
Connie.
It is you. But anyways, Liam, yes, we hope you get well. I don't know how you have COVID since it doesn't exist anymore, but unfortunate for you. Listen, okay, we've had the controversy, we've moved on, it's all good. Well, listen, Jets, let's get into the football. Let's give Liam some content that he deserves. But my God, he is a great listener. So we're going to get straight into it. There is a lot to talk about. We've got all kinds of wonderful things set up. So we're going to get the first slide, and let me see if I can kind of get this laid out properly. There we go. So a lot of movement. So let's just talk about that first before we get into any specific teams. Gentlemen, let's start with Declan Rice. Go to Connie on this. Connie, you'll have to unmute yourself. 2 bids rejected, I believe. Is it you or?
Yeah. No. Two bids rejected, but the news today is now that Man City are in for him, which is really just all we've known up until this window. Like prior to the window, Declan Rice grew up a hardcore Chelsea fan. I would have bet my left leg that he was ending up at Chelsea. Financial situation, I don't know. I think the signing, I can't think of his name right now. Eric knows, the Argentinian fellow, brilliant signing. I think that with the other cost and the spend kind of threw that off for Chelsea. So it looked like he was nailed on for Arsenal. But now it looks like City's in for him. I think there's a little talk United. I struggle with the 90-100 million for Declan Rice, but it seems to be a bit of a battle. But the bottom line is this: he's on the go, and if you're West Ham, it's whoever is going to take the highest bid and who he's want to go to. Like, is City going to pay 100 mil for him? Maybe if these Saudi exits continue, they will. I don't know. I'm curious to hear what Eric thinks about this and what you two think about it. But he's on the move this summer for sure. It's probably going to be 90 or 100 mil. Eric, what do you think?
Don't see him not moving. He's going to move. City, they're getting Kovacic, right? They got Rodri. I don't see how Declan's going to fit in for that kind of price. If Mount stayed at Chelsea, very possible we have a move for Rice, but that's not happening either. So I really think it's Arsenal and only Arsenal. It's just a matter of forcing them to pay that 90 to 100. I think it's more of the add-ons that West Ham want, like easier add-ons, not difficult ones, right?
Yeah, no, I think absolutely spot on. It is insane. I don't understand the link of Man City when they just obviously took Kovacic, as we just mentioned. It seems strange.
They want all the best players. Like, if you're a top team, you want the best players. I can see why Man City want him, because Arsenal's their most direct rival. Like, it's not United, it's not Chelsea, it's not Newcastle. It's going to be Arsenal for the next 2 or 3 seasons. And so to take one of their big linchpins that could be the key member of them for the next 2 years, rip it away from him and put him in their team, yeah, they're going to do it. Even if he doesn't start as many games as he would at Arsenal, Man City would be hurting Arsenal by winning this bid. I think it would be a huge win for Arsenal if they could get him and the players listed below. All these guys are between that 22 to 24, 25-year-old range. They're all going to fit in perfectly for Arsenal's system. I think they're going to be playing a very strong 4-3-3 in the next year. And I think Declan Rice playing as one of those 8s or a 6 is really just going to solidify him. A lot of people are like, hey, is he overrated? Did he do enough in this West Ham side? I think he's been holding back a little bit the last few months in the EPL. I think he tried real hard in the Conference League to help him win something. They did win something. But I think you put him in an Arsenal team with the players they have, and he is going to shine. He is going to be maybe not exactly their Jude Bellingham, but he's going to be that value to him.
Okay, well, that's a big claim. We obviously mentioned there, and I think let's move on then. We've got obviously the 2 guys that I actually really want for this conversation. Havertz, very interesting acquisition by Arsenal. I got to be honest, I'm not sure Arsenal fans immediately are thrilled about this. And Eric, I want to go to you on this because there's no doubt that Kai Havertz has talent, right? We've seen him pop up in important games, the Champions League for you and things like that. But other than that, he just goes missing far too often. And I remember that from a fantasy perspective. He was just all over the place. So Eric, first to you, what do you make of this, of that transfer?
Interesting to spend that much of their budget on a player that has, from what we can see today, doesn't fit their system. He has to take someone else's job who's a sure-on starter. So when you look at it, what is he? He's a number 10, Odegaard. Is he a striker? No, we figured that out after the last 2 years.
Yeah.
He can play off the striker on the right-hand side, but that's where Saka's going to fill up the space. So I almost see him as he can fill one of 3 roles when needed. So if there's an injury, Arsenal can fill that need very easily. And I did hear a little curious take on it that Arteta wants to put him at a number 8 position, move him back into midfield. And you know what? He's technically gifted. He can control a ball. He can hold up a ball. He can pass a ball. Maybe he's that guy that makes late runs into the box and changes his position at a young age. I just don't see him fitting in the role that we would think he plays. Because where does he play for Turkey, right? Off the striker. He's not going to do that there.
They could go false 9, though, and I could see that working. I'll tell you why I see it working. I think it works, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Eric. It works well if you have scoring wingers. Like we saw, what do you think Firmino's done for the last 4 seasons, right? I think he wants that Odegaard hold-up play, and Kai is very good technically. But I would agree with Eric. He's by no means an out-and-out striker, and we saw with Gabriel Jesus, when he went out injured, they started to play better when they played with that false nine. I think the idea is to get Martinelli and Saka in behind and get them and kind of getting contributions across that front line. I think it might work, but I'm kind of with Eric. I'm not sure exactly where they want to pinpoint him. But when he was in Germany, he dropped deeper and almost played a 10, right? And that's where he had his most success. But then does Odegaard drop deeper? I don't know. I'm not sure. It's an interesting one.
I just think for the money paid, is he a sure on?
Oh, and we lost him. I'm going to jump in. I literally was going to go for the same thing, that at 60, 65, 55 million, that's an expensive price for a guy who has to battle his way to become a starter. For me, if they had gotten for 45, I would have said, yeah, that's a good pickup for a guy who's going to be getting backup minutes or trying to work his way in. But like Eric was saying, I think the price that they paid was a little steep for a guy that they're just it just doesn't, like, when you think about the best starting 11 for Arsenal, yes, Rice gets into that best starting 11. Does Havertz?
He might. Who are you? Okay, so if you're
Martinelli, Gabriel Jesus, and Saka up top,
maybe honestly, the way he finished the second half of the season, I would probably start Havertz over Gabriel Jesus right now. He actually looked out of place in that team. He wasn't starting a lot.
That is a big claim.
Okay.
Then if you're saying he's the backup striker, then what are they selling? What is it? And Dekia? What's the backup striker there?
Nketiah. So they were better when Nketiah came in. He was scoring goals, but he dropped form. And if you remember, he dropped form hard. So did Jesus really, really badly, which is why I think they might want him more for link up to get everybody else involved. Maybe you get more goals out of Odegaard. Maybe you get more to Saka and Martinelli. And then what are they going to do with Emile Smith-Rowe?
Or let alone Balogun, who's coming back from Nice, who had 21 goals in the French league, who's now committed to the United States. He's going to be there. He's going to be the United States number 9 for the next decade.
Yeah, but there's a lot of talk about him leaving. There's links with him leaving. So I think it's a complex one, right? But I think the one thing that we've seen is that whether we want to admit it or not, he knows how to manage, right? What they have there, he knows how to manage. And he's picked up a lot of players that we didn't think, would be a good fit, or maybe we thought, oh, it's Man City's, castaways. But they really worked a system, and Arsenal unfortunately just ran out of steam. But there's no argument that Arteta knows what he's doing. And maybe I think this is a signing that Arsenal fans are just going to have faith in. There is no doubt he's still a young player. He's a big, powerful lad. He is confident. He's played in World Cups. He's played in Champions League finals. He has got experience across the board. I'm with JP in that I don't know where I'm not sure, and I'm looking at the people that they already have. But as we were just talking, as Eric mentioned, I think we might see a bit of a change here. We might see a bit of a reformatting, a bit of a different setup.
You know who we didn't even mention? We didn't even mention they also have Trossard now, too. So the competition across that front line, you're talking 6 or 7 players.
And Nketiah.
So 2 or 3 of them are either going to have to make way. And let's be very honest here. Gabriel Jesus is not going to be a happy boy riding the pine over there. But if you could set up the system correctly, and I'm sure Eric would admit this, and the right circumstance, you can have a very, very good and technical player in Kai Havertz. It's just, I think with Chelsea, you would see a brilliant player one game, and then they change formation and system, and then it just doesn't work for him. He's not that big physical guy, but I think in the perimeter with the right setup, he's a deadly player.
100%. I think
he works pretty good for Germany.
That's what I mean.
Struggle on the German team.
He's one of those players, internationally great.
And he wasn't bad for Chelsea.
No, he wasn't, but he wasn't consistent enough for a guy that you paid about 90 million for, Eric?
But hold on.
75 pounds.
It was more than that. It doesn't matter. Here's the thing. When they signed him, Lukaku was there, or it was just before they got Lukaku. He was never expected to be a 9. Chelsea threw him in at number 9, and that's never what he was going there to be, which I don't think was fair to him. And he still scored the odd goal, but I don't think it was set up for him to be successful. And that's the whole interesting thing is how are they going to set him up different at Arsenal, if at all, right?
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good point. And then we'll move on. I actually I don't know who this last guy is. This
Who?
is
Timber.
Jurian Timber?
yeah.
Oh,
I
brilliant.
don't know enough about him. I know the name, but so I'm gonna just.
You want me to tell you who he is?
Please, take
Yeah.
it away.
Okay, so typically a right back who can also play center back at Ajax. Not a big gentleman. I think in and around 5'9", 5'10". Very physical though. Great speed, great control, but a ball playing center back or a can get forward right back. United were in for him very, very closely last year. He was convinced to stay and told that he wasn't going to get minutes. Basically, Louis van Gaal said, if you go and you make that move and you don't play all the time, I'm not picking you for the World Cup. So that basically stopped him. Didn't have his best season this year, but we're still looking at him. Arsenal are all over him. He's a very good right back if you're looking, or a center back if you're looking for someone to play the ball and get forward. He's linked to a lot of teams now, probably 50 to 60 million. One of those things we always say on this pod, and it's true, could he make the adaptation to the Premier League? It's a risk, but definitely a talent.
Yeah, I think it's always a risk, especially with those positions. I think there's attacking right backs and stuff like that. It's, I think in lower leagues they have that fluidity to play in a centre back position as well. But I think we've seen the tenacity and the physical exertion that is needed for the Premier League. I don't think that translates. You need your centre backs who are going to be in that, maybe every now and again can do a job at a DM if you need. But this right back to centre back, it's not really seen much. Like Villa have it a little bit with Ezri Konsa, but it's not, he's still centre back really for Premier League.
Ben White made the transition for Arsenal. Did
but Ben White was never really a centre back. Ben White was far too small for a centre back. In the end, any idea of Ben White being a centre back is nonsensical. He may be in a back three and on the right side, so he's transitioning into the middle more, but he's not a centre back. JP,
I actually see this as a long-term investment. He's only 21. I think this is a player who doesn't start the season, but gets, your 15 games, your odd appearances here, your cup games and whatever. And you got to remember, Arsenal is now going to be in the Champions League, so they need 4 or 5 more guys onto this squad to help them even out the numbers. I think this guy is not for this season. He's the guy for 2 to 3 season. He's who's that guy they sent to France for a season who just destroyed in France, and then he came back and he played really well in the Arsenal center back.
Saliba.
Yeah,
Love
like
him.
this is a similar type of thing where he's been at Ajax playing at a very high level, maybe not the EPL level, but he's a guy who he can get a good action in, and then starting next year, he could be one of the starting guys. So for me, 30 million for a guy like this, young age, you put him on a 6-year deal or a Chelsea 12-year deal, and there you go, you're set.
Yeah,
I also think the flavor of the week is these high quality ball playing center backs everybody wants at the high level, right?
100%.
Oh yeah,
that seems to be the new
but
flavor.
You need it.
With
but
that
you need
style,
it though, right? You need at least one of your center backs that can progress the ball forward nowadays, and one guy can be a little bit more physical. But that is the modern ask now of center back. Like if you look 20 years ago, big, strong, physical, good in the air, and can boot the ball out. Perfect. We'll sign him. Now you need to transition the ball from defense to attack as quick as possible, and you need to have good control, right? Like we're seeing that more and more often. He kind of fits that bill, but like we talk about transition, I would say you look at La Liga, the French league, that's a drop or two below. I find the Eredivisie a big drop below. And it's a hard transition from the Dutch league to the Premier League. We had it worked out well with Martinez last year, but it's a fucking gamble when you're going from this level way up to this level. So I think JP nailed it with that, but we'll see.
I think it's going to be an interesting one, but I would hesitate just to add a long-term investment is great, but Arsenal need stalwarts that can come in and add to the young group that they have. I think if they are going to be a genuine competitor again next year, They need those guys who can see out the league. And I think a 21-year-old right back, centre back, fluid is not what they need. They've got enough young players. So it'll be interesting, and it will be really interesting to see. Okay, so some really interesting transfers. A lot of links still happening. It's a really exciting time.
It's early.
But-
It's early in the window. There's a lot. Everyone's. You know what happens? Not to jump in here. This is when the window opens. Nothing happens for 2 and 3 weeks, and every fan base, me included, my fan base is the worst. Everyone has a meltdown. What the hell? Nothing's happened. You know when business starts to happen? The second week of July. Everyone calm down. It's a long window. But yeah, I'm also going mental as well.
Yeah, I thought I was going to say he's
100%.
picking this up,
Losing.
but this
Losing hair,
transitions us
Connie.
very nicely to our next segment, which is the SPL, the Saudi Premier League or Professional League or whatever it's called. I haven't really looked it up because I don't care. We're going to have to talk about this, guys, because it has become it's a dangerous one. So let me just kind of put on the table one thing. So we saw Gary Neville having a bit of a rant, which is kind of ironic for a guy that doesn't pay his own taxes and then takes broadcasting jobs in the Middle East. But obviously, this is how the world works. We can have an opinion and then do something totally different behind people's backs. But there's a serious issue here. So if anyone follows like any of the other sports out there, esports. The Middle East and the Saudis have been into this for a long time. There is a company that is basically going after Twitch's dominance in the market called Kicked. They have just paid a streamer called QXC, who's a very, very well-known streamer, $100 million for a 2-year non-exclusive deal. Now, just to put that into perspective, that is more money than the 2-year extension LA paid LeBron James. This is how much money they are putting into that world. Then you look at it and you go, right, golf. This whole live league, it's been a complete mess. Everyone's standing out. Rory standing with the PGA and saying, no, we're not doing this. And all of a sudden, poof, something changes. The commissioner of the PGA says, we're merging. And people are furious. But they're into that now as well. And now it started off, when it's taking the Ronaldos and it's taking this and it's taking that, it's not too bad. But now we're seeing young players at least in the real major stages of their career. We've now seen that. Correct me if I'm wrong, Eric. N'Golo Kante is guaranteed. He's gone. But
Official.
I was talking to a Chelsea fan yesterday. I was playing football with him, and he said he's not too angry about it because he thinks his legs are gone. And I think a lot of Chelsea fans probably feel that. But there's something really serious now, and let's just put it out. Whoever wants to kind of jump in on this, please do. I know you've all probably got your own feelings on it, but is this something that we should all be worried about? And Gary Neville come out the other day, and he's now calling for the Premier League to halt these transfers until we can see the benefits, until we do an actual analysis of whether this works. So what do we make of this? So should we just keep it free market open and the Saudis have the money so they can continue to do whatever the hell they want? Or is could this really damage the foundations of football as we know it?
I got a lot
I'll
on
go
this,
first
but
on
yeah,
that, if
you
you guys
go
don't
first,
mind.
Eric. Yeah.
So I think we need to look 2030 World Cup. Who wants to host it? The Saudis, right? This is their first chess piece in that game of getting the World Cup, and they're not scared to throw all their eggs at something. They bought golf, and what did it take them, a year? They own golf. They figure this is their summer. They're going to throw. I heard a number 500 million at transfers. I think I heard a number like that. That's their first summer so-called budget. Could double that, right? So their goal is to get as many names into their 4 or 5 top teams as possible, just to get some recognition into Saudi football, which I don't think anyone's watched a game in their life. No one's even going to watch this season or next season or any other season. How do you watch Saudi football? Do we know? No one's going to tune in. It's just a matter of we've got some players. We somehow love the sport now, and now we want to bid on a World Cup that we want in 2030. I think that's the end game of this whole play. So short term, I think it's a big problem. I think long term, I think they kind of get some name recognition, but I think once they get their World Cup bids accepted, I don't know if it lasts or not. Players aren't that interested in going there at 22, 23. They might get a couple of guys, but are they really going to get the top guys going there in the prime of their career? Don't see it happening.
Well, let's take a pause on. I agree with everything you said here, but first of all, the 500 million number, Not even close. I think their budget is limitless. These people,
It's limitless.
it's a blank check, right?
I
And
heard
I
it was in the
agree.
billions.
Oh, it is in they have their net worth is 1.4 trillion. Like $1 billion is nothing to them, right? So like I agree, like how you started us off here, Luke. The Ronaldo thing, totally get it. He's old. Conte, his legs are gone. He's won the lot already. Here's what's concerning me. As soon as I saw the report, Ruben Neves, and then today,
Gabriel,
Bernardo Silva, who's in his absolute prime. This is the concern, right? Like, it's not a big deal if you're grabbing guys that are 35, 36 at the end of their day. I don't blame them. Go get your money. But if they start poaching 25-year-olds like a Bernardo Silva, and here's the thing, and it's kind of with the live thing again. If someone turns to any of the four of us and says, listen, I'm going to give you the same job. You're going to have to work half the amount, but I'm going to pay you 10 times the amount of money. Are any of the four of us going to say no to that?
Fuck, I'm moving to Antarctica for that pay.
Exactly. So anybody who shit on the live guys, shame on you. It's a career. They made a choice. They still get to play in the majors. And to your point earlier, they're merged. Now they're the same. What about those guys who didn't take the $300 million? These 26-year-olds, when they're saying, listen, we're going to offer you $35 million a season, they weren't even going to make that in their entire career. Let's be very honest. Money talks, and it changes a lot of things in life. If you could play another 2 seasons, then have $30 million in your bank account, here's the problem. It's really hard to say no to that. Am I going to judge any of them? No, but I'm with Eric. This is concerning because they can do this on a large scale, and they're going to start poaching all of the players. You're a Chelsea fan, a United fan, a Juventus fan, a Barcelona fan. Instead of being worried about the other powerhouses around Europe, our main concern now should be the Saudi teams taking our targets. It's scary. Are they trying to build it up for the World Cup, or are they going to keep throwing money at this and try to build up the Saudi league so it's bigger than better than everybody else? I don't know, but I don't like it. But I get it.
So there's a counter argument to this, and I think it's the current president of FIFA just was chatting about this, and he made a very good point. Let's not forget the incredible amount of young players that try and make it through leagues, right? And I think there's also a bit of elitism on our level that we are so fixated on a handful of players. Yes, Bernardo is an interesting one and makes this a bit of a difficult one. He's also 28, right? And he's been playing a long time. He's won a lot of trophies. He's had a lot of accomplishments. So, it's not going to, the only one he's not really won is international. I don't think he was part of the 2016 Euros for Portugal, as to the best of my knowledge.
I don't think he was.
But he'll still be picked for Portugal. So that's not going to change. Him being in Saudi is not going to change him being picked. So from the statute of that, he's won the Premier League, he's won the French leagues, he's won the Champions League. He's won all of those things. So that one doesn't. And the other side to this is that there is a frightening problem with the grassroots football in major leagues, right? It's better in places like Germany where they have fixed rules on how many German-grown players must be part of the team. And I think the Germans, they've always got it well. They've always done most things right. And I think the UK, we've had this argument. I made a point on a long time ago now. And when we looked at the time, I looked at the Manchester City Premier League 2, which is the under-23s. They had won 2 years prior, they'd won the Premier League. And just 2 years later, there wasn't a single player in that 50-something man under-23 squad that was still with the club. And this is another point is, yes, if the money's going to be thrown at these players, if they're going to take it, maybe they should take it. But maybe this will start to open it up. And so clubs will have to look more internally, right? Because there's so much talent and so many players that just don't get a look in. Maybe the bigger names going out takes some of the attention off and allows clubs to focus on that grassroots. And maybe there's a bit of a silver lining here. It is hard because it just feels abusive, and it feels abusive and wrong based on what we know about the Middle East and what we know about the contradictory opinions they have to many of the Western world's views on equality, human rights, things like that. But that's a point. JP?
Yeah, I definitely agree that there's some point of this that we have to realize that we can be a little bit hypocritical, right? We don't want our players leaving the EPL. We're elitist in the fact that we're just talking and we're a show that just focuses on the EPL. And we all want our teams to do well, but nothing scares us most than your best players going, maybe not the best players for Eric, but like the best players for every other club team. But it's becoming more than that. Like even today, Fabrizio Romano reported that Ibrahima Bamba from Vitória Guimarães from Portugal, who is a club that Aston Villa owned roughly 40% in, they're basically their standout player is a holding mid. He was born in 2002. He's 21 years old, and he's about to join the Saudi League. And he's a guy who is watched not just by Villa, but Arsenal, the top teams in England, top teams in Spain, in France, in Italy. This is a guy who has kind of his future in front of him. He's one of those guys where he's not your superstar. These are the top 4 superstars coming out. He's on that next list of like 10 to 15. Like this could be a future 6 for any top team in 5 years if they want to invest, like a Brighton 6, right? He's leaving to go to the Saudi League. That's a little worrisome for me when you're getting 20, 21, the prime of the buck. And yeah, I am hypocritical. I don't want players going there, not because of the issues that are going on with the morality of it. The issue for me is that the Saudi Prince Fund owns the top 4 teams. At what point is that no longer a competition? We are just going to get you all these top stars, and we're just going to give it these top 4 teams, and all the other teams can't compete against them. And what we've seen here in the EPL is that teams like Manchester City that have this huge amount of wealth, like the PIF have, they are literally dominating leagues now. What's going to happen when Newcastle, who are just finalizing a $70 million deal that they probably would not have been able to make, this is the second time in 18 months, what happens when they've signed 4 or 5 guys that are 70 mil and they're winning the league title and nobody else can compete? These are not competitions anymore.
But JP, hang on. To that point though, JP, I think there's a danger though at saying that this is a Saudi exclusive problem. You know, Chelsea were nothing really and had not done a whole lot in a long time. And then Abramovich and all his billions come in and they dominate for years. This is not a new thing. And so I think your argument there is more about the obscenity of wealth that is being allowed into the leagues. Now, right now, that is being, shown by the Saudis. And I think their level of wealth supersedes even the Abramoviches and the Glazers and stuff like that, because it's bottomless, right? It really is bottomless. If they want to make more money, they'll lower the amount of oil that's available and they'll skyrocket the profit and make huge profits again. So I get your point, but I think in that case it's less about the players making their decisions at 21 to go and make a dump ton of money in the Saudi League. It's unfortunate, and I wouldn't want to do that as a young player that wants to win things, but I understand why they would do it. But I think it's more, we have to maybe refocus on this conversation of things like the FFP, the financial fair play, which is just being abused and finding loopholes. And Eric knows.
It's a joke.
It is a joke.
I asked this question with the Saudis as well, though. It always goes
sure.
back to the end game. Like, we can look at the golf. I think their end game was to get into the PGA Tour, and it just so happened it took 1 year. What's the end game with football, right? Are they going to be scared?
It has to be that they want the SPL, which is in the India subcontinent, right? That's that CONCACAF. I'm wondering if they're going to petition to be put into Europe.
Yeah, that's how I'm thinking that as well.
If they say,
you know what, we want
to play at the Champions League. Like, why can't we? We got players like this and this and this. We got Benzema. We got Ronaldo. We got Conte. Why can't we play in the Champions League? And as soon as that happens, it's over. That's
going to take some time. That's going to take some time. And I think, back to Luke's point.
It comes back to UEFA, and UEFA just want money. FIFA just wants money.
It's corruption. And I don't, we're going to say it on the pod.
Yeah, it's a business, and everything is run by. So here's the thing. You're going to have young guys, 25, 27, 28, still young when you say Bernardo. Very young. Most people call it's the peak of your career. Here's the thing. You're going to have guys that care about Champions Leagues, that care about domestic titles, that will still make a good living. And you're going to have that other guy that says, well, I can make more in one season than I might make in my entire career or 2 seasons. You can't really fault that guy, but it's hard. It's to JP's point. these people are funneling in money and changing the game. But it's one of those things when you got to look at the mirror and put yourself in their shoes. What would I do? It'd be very hard. Let's say one of us was like 24, 25, rising star in Europe, could be playing for Chelsea, Real Madrid, Villa, whatever, but you have a bright future. And somebody came to you, like maybe you're a Jude Bellingham. Let's say somebody went to Jude. Jude's a perfect example. And they offered him 5 times the amount Real Madrid were offering. That's a hard number to say no. But there's going to be guys that are going to have that decision. The money's not going away. It's going to filter down the talent in Europe. But I'm with Eric. I don't know what the end game is here. Are they trying to build up the league? Are they trying to build it up for the World Cup that they're trying to ask for? Like, what's the long-term strategy? Or do they want to build up this league and really have everyone come there because money talks? I think it's just
I think it's money, right? And I think
Yeah.
if you know anything about money, as you know, any of us do, but when you actually look at the obscene levels of money, right? I have a startup now and we've raised capital, and then also I got into that world. There's obscenity there, like where, you know, why do Connie and JP and Luke and Eric not hear about the next Twitter? You know, way until way down the line when it's already the valuations at obscene amounts. It's because wealth generates more wealth, right? So the Saudis are aware that the time is starting to change and people are slowly moving away from fossil fuels. It's going to happen, okay?
Electric, baby.
Yeah, it's whether it's electric, you know, there's a push again, hydrogen's being promoted again, and there's a lot of solutions that are being looked at from there. But anyways, they realize that where they've made all their money and where the Saudis in the Middle East have made all this obscene levels of money, it's going to start drying. So any smart company that sees that their market is disappearing, they diversify. So that's what they're doing. They've seen there is huge opportunity in esports, in sports, and they're becoming bigger and better and more global across every sport. Look at golf now. It's you know, the youngsters are back to golf, and you know the booze hounds are out. You know, the garbage open or whatever it's called in the US, and that
Waste management.
Waste management, garbage open.
I want to go. It looks like a blast.
So do
It
I.
just looks like, just go. Don't save your money and go to the darts in England. It's the same experience and better athletes. You know, find me a guy that can speak 23 pints and still win a championship. Now
Hold on now.
That's talent.
that's talent. But listen,
I want to see Luke play golf.
I am terrible, but I do have the Happy Gilmore rage down. So I really am entertaining to watch. But I think we all agree it's a worrying time, right, for sports, and definitely a worrying time for the Premier League. And I think, Eric, you were spot on. It's what does it look like? It's not so much the now, it's the where are we in 4 or 5 years if we do not start to put conditions and regulation in place. And I gotta be honest, guys, I don't see that happening. We've had corruption in FIFA, we've had corruption at UEFA, they've replaced people, and then the same people themselves get done for corruption and problems. And the Premier League has brought in this and has brought in this FFP. It's not done a blind bit of difference. Like Man City have skirted it, other teams have found loopholes. Like I don't see it being improved, and I think maybe I'm just a bit.
You know what?
We
do have to see what the outcome is of that Man City probe, right? Like, as I think the outcome of that, because that's a Premier League.
We can't wait.
Well, that's what I mean. There's talk of how long that might take, but the word out from the Premier League is that they're trying to move as quickly as possible. But it's a lot of information. Kind of like we knew UEFA was a joke when they skirted it with all their lawyers. We're like, FFP is a non-factor. It doesn't even matter. But I think from a Premier League standpoint, the outcome of that case, I think, will dictate what the future is going to look like. Is the Premier League serious about it? Or are they just going to take hush money cash payments from whoever and just turn a blind eye and give them a 4-point reduction and move on with your day, right? Like, I think that's going to be a true tell situation of where this thing is going and if it's even remotely real for the Premier League.
So we started with Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher. Gary Neville said, any chance the Premier League can look into the Saudi trading now? He said, get a regulator in ASCP that's agile enough to stop these things at the source. If it doesn't look right, it probably isn't right. Independence is required at ASCP. The governance of our game is a mess. And the EPL actually have a rule that shows that if a player is being overvalued, like super overvalued beyond the market value, the Premier League can actually stop the transfer. They can actually say
It's not.
no.
It's not the transfer fees, though. It's not the transfer fees. It's the
is.
wages. It's not.
No,
like they're
it
offering
is.
$50 million for Bernardo Silva.
They're
That's
offering 50 for Koulibaly, who needs a fucking wheelchair.
What did Chelsea pay for him last 2 years ago?
JP, they're offering
70.
They're offering 12 million.
It's the
No,
Yeah.
I
Not
heard
50,
it's 50
12.
million.
yeah.
They're offering 8 for
It's the
Ziyech.
salaries.
You need a $12 million wheelchair to
he's
get him
being-
on the
he's
pitch
being
fast
paid-
enough.
It's
Dude, Koulibaly's being paid $50 million, not the fee.
All right,
it's what they're
fine.
paying the
Fine.
players.
Let's say it's not the wages. Let's say it is the wages. They should be stopping
It
this
is.
because of the absurd wages.
How?
that's
But
the
the
biggest
wages-
issue.
You can't. No, you
On
can't do
what
that.
grounds?
You
On
can't
what
exactly.
grounds?
I can't stop you taking an international teaching job, even though it's taking a good teacher away from a school where you're based. And you can
Happens
say,
all the
well,
time.
we're losing all the good teachers. That's every industry. That is a free market.
Yes.
That's a capitalist state.
It's called capitalism.
And you can't tell an independent contractor, which realistically these footballers are, they're independent workers. They go out and they sign contracts. Hey, you can't have that big money contract. Why? I'd say the first thing I'd do would legal action. I'd just take it to court. So I get it, JP, but it's not that easy. And I do think there has to be regulation. I think things need to be done. But in the interest of moving on, hang on, I want to move on to our next point. And let's look about some of the links here. Eric, we're going to go to you. You've become, in my mind, what's happening is it's basically America's Got Talent, but for the Chelsea roster. And the Saudis are sat there going, no, move. Yes, we'll have. Yes. And they're just ticking up. You seem to be having a bit of a junkyard sale at Chelsea. And as a fan with worrying amounts of players that you probably won off the books, you must be feeling fairly happy about it.
It's great news. I mean, the transfer fees are actually going to be low when they actually come out. Okay, I think they offered 100 million for Lukaku, Ziyech, Alba, Koulibaly, and who am I missing? It was 5 players, and they offered 100 total for all 5. Lukaku didn't want to go, so now they're negotiating. Oh, and Mendy. Okay, that was the 5th.
Mendy.
It's what Dave was just saying. It's not so much the 12 million, the 50 million, or 10 million they're offering. They're offering 50 million, 25 million per season, which is the players looking at going, well, I'm at the end of my career. I'm not going to be a starter. I'd be silly not to take the money. Lukaku still thinks he can play in Europe for a couple more years, obviously, right? But none of us see that happening. I'm surprised he hasn't jumped ship and taken the money. But as a Chelsea fan, we're getting rid of players that we don't want with high wages. We're saving a massive wage bill here, right? So it's going to work in our favor. And it just so happens the timing as a Chelsea fan with the Saudis buying as much talent around with a name, it's worked out great for us. We're not going to make a profit on those sales. We're going to save on the wages.
Yeah, and it'll fund things like Caicedo and other players like that you guys are trying to get in as well. It works out great for you guys.
So it's really the wage savings. I don't know the exact number, but these guys are making 200, 300 grand a week.
It's big money.
And the young players we're buying aren't making that. They're making 50 grand a week. It's massive when you add those totals up at the end of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a really smart move, and Chelsea must be overjoyed about it. There is obviously that bit of stickiness with this Clear Lake, obviously investment group, and JP. I know you love going down your holes on this one, so why don't you jump in here?
I mean, The Athletic did a really good article on this yesterday, where they basically said there is no tie, and that's fine. There might not be any cash tie, but that doesn't mean there wasn't a backdoor handshake that said, you know what, you guys got a lot of players. We have a list. These guys are on our list. We'll pay you for them. We won't pay you great money, but we will take them off your hands. Here's the biggest issue. And I was watching The Club earlier today. I don't know if you guys have heard The Club. It's another YouTube channel. It's done by the big Chelsea fan, Rory, whatever his name is.
Right? I like Rory.
Yeah, he's a great guy, and he's very knowledgeable, and he's well articulated. And he says the thing about the Premier League, and this is great, the thing about the Premier League is if you mess up, and you have to take time. You get dinged. There's a punishment for bad management. And you can't say, and Eric, like, I know you're a Chelsea fan, but if you think deep in your heart, over the last 18 months, you can't say your new owner is a great owner or a smart owner or he knows what he's doing.
He's shit. He's
He
shit.
took his cum and he shot it on the wall and he was hoping for a baby.
Are we talking about Bowley?
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
what's happened is he got caught with all of his hands in every fucking basket. And what's happened now is just at the same time that they're going to spend all this money, the same time that they've been doing these deals for his consortium, now they're selling all these players there. And I'm not saying one or two guys, because they are buying players all around the world, big names all around the world. 6, 7, 8 guys that are being linked from Chelsea to this new pro league in Saudi Arabia, and it smells fishy. And here's the thing that Roy pointed out. In the EPL, if you're bad management, you get penalized, right? You guys have had the luck of the draw for the last 20 years with Roman and all this money that Chelsea has. And now that you guys finally get caught in a little bit of problem where you overspent, you're getting off scot fucking free.
Hey, how do you think the entire world works? Everything is a backdoor deal. Luke nailed it earlier. Wealth, you know what wealth gets? They get privy into other connections and inside informations, and they make deals. And you know what they do? They circumnavigate so that they don't get their hands slapped.
In the world, but this is supposed to be a sporting competition with sporting integrity.
It's a business,
no
JP.
It's
a
sporting
business.
integrity.
The flaw in the conspiracy is this would have had to be discussed with the Saudis before the sale of the club. That's the
all
flaw.
right. So every fan of the Premier League, you should probably go find a new league, a new team, a new whatever, because this isn't a sporting league. It's a fucking business, right?
The Saudis
In
were
that
already
case,
invested with Clear
we should
Lake
no
before the
longer be
takeover.
fans. We should all join the NFL because at least there's some parity there. And I'm
You've
sorry,
watched it
I
for
don't.
the last 6, 7
I don't
seasons
want
with
to
Man
watch
City.
Chelsea.
Man City,
I don't
money
want to watch.
talks.
I know. I don't want to watch that.
Sport.
I'm at the highest love for Villa that I've ever had because we're doing well, but I'm also at the lowest spot for the EPL than I've ever been.
This is where it's trending, JP. No one's saying it's good, but it's a reality, and it's been this way for a while.
Then the league needs to step up and make some changes, and it's not too late. As I said,
I agree with you.
The problem.
No one's going to say no more to more money. And
this is the problem. Look at the TV rights.
Business. Exactly.
Look at the TV rights. You know, the reason that our clubs could do, the reason that you are hemorrhaging money if you lose your position in the Premier League is because just alone the TV parachute payments.
Oh.
Last place team 45-50 million. You know, that's a game changer
going up.
for some
It's
teams.
getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
And bigger and bigger. And then you look at, you know, I know this is frustrating. And JP, you know, I think it's endearing that your frustration here, because I think it's from a truly...
It's genuine. It's
a genuine love
I just want to
of the
see
game.
a league that's entertaining. I want to see teams that win the league on 70 points, not 95. I want to see
Leicester.
I want Leicester's, and I want the Man City first season. And I want Man United to win another title. I want Chelsea to win another title. And
I think it's gone, JP. You know, the French league has been completely
ruined
ruined by PSG.
Then you're killing the fans.
Or
the French league has been ruined by PSG.
Or more billionaires, or it becomes a billionaires league, right? Or like, let's say somebody comes in and buys Villa, and they like are 10 times what you're worth now. Like, I don't think it's going to be every team.
But it's already that. It's already that.
Yeah,
let's not forget.
exactly.
We talk about Man City. We talk about Arsenal. We know Arsenal's got a decent bit. We obviously Chelsea. We know that. Aston Villa. Joint ownership valuation about 6.5-7 billion, right?
Yeah.
The Wolves consortium 7 or 8 billion.
Yeah.
Everton now linked with that if that ever goes through, but billions.
I'm still worried about Everton and Wolves.
There is a number, but that's only one or two. JP, there's
it's the state-owned. The state-owned thing is the thing
that
the
needs the EPL needs to change, because it's becoming the rich boys win. And that's not sport. And like we saw in the Saudi League, when you have just 4 teams that have all the money, what is the point?
So I think I think it was 1990 or 1991. Sir Alan Sugar, a very famous British businessman, then owner of a club we love tearing apart in Tottenham Hotspur, left and sold the club. And when he left, he was asked why, and he said because it's no longer an economic driven business. He said he made his money He's an interesting guy, flogging crap, at the market, selling fruits. Then he went into pharmaceutical sales, tech sales. He got into all kinds of whatever. But he's a core businessman. Get the money in, flip it, right? And he saw in the turn of the 90s, as the Premier League became what it is now, he saw this is changing. And this is not a business I know. And now we are seeing just a high level of that. And JP, it's going to get worse, dude. And I think the only argument and the only thing that we can try and sort is this
50+1.
Yes, it's
50+1 rule.
Never going to happen.
It could happen. 100% it could happen.
Why? If you own a team, why would you want to give up 49% of it?
Hey, tell that to Roman. He owned a team. He didn't want to give it up, and he had to.
Hey, why is Jeff Bezos going to give away his Amazon? I get where you're coming from. Your heart's in the right place. Your head is in the right place. You need to wrap your head around the fact that money drives everything.
Can be done. If the head
money
and the heart
drives
is there,
everything
it
in
can
the
be
world.
done.
No, money drives everything in the world.
100% money drives everything in the world. I get that, but if you put Man U on the
they want to keep their money.
If you put Man U on the stock exchange
and you said the New York Stock Exchange,
and you said the most any one fan could own was 5% of Manchester United, and you had to sell 51% to the public, it would be fucking done in a year. It would be done.
It wouldn't, man.
Every
the
fucking
Saudis have more
NFL
money.
team would be done.
The Saudis have more money. I don't know.
I'd put $1,000 right now to buy 0.0001% of Aston Villa.
Dude,
I don't care.
I put a lot more. I put a lot more than that. I'd put a lot more than that if it could be like that. But there's people with
Paul has a good
way
point.
more
Let's bring
money.
it up.
Yeah. So I think it's a good point, but we got to be really careful here because it's a fantasy world, right? It's a fantasy world.
Let's stop that discussion. Let's go to Paul's for a second. Could we?
Yeah.
Clear Lake owns Chelsea. The Saudi Public Investment Fund own the SPL, and a big part of Clear Lake. I want to preference. I think it's under 40% of Clear Lake, as the research I've been looking into. So by extension, Chelsea, and they own Newcastle, which by itself you can't own two. So they could have spent knowing the SPL was there to bail them out. And that's where there's a lot of discussion saying that Chelsea and the Clear Lake are separate. Clear Lake invests over 400 companies. This we know. Eric's been very prominent on this. And I'm not saying Chelsea did anything wrong, but if there is proof, if emails have been found between the Saudi company and Bowley that said, hey, can we make some deals happen, they should be punished. That's fucking cheating.
That's a conflict of interest. I didn't know that last point.
No, but listen,
that's illegal is what was just like that. That's sport washing to the full max.
But
go ahead, Eric. You're dying to get in this, Eric. Go ahead.
No, please, Eric. Yeah.
The whole theory is implying that somehow the Saudis invested with Clear Lake, knowing that they were going to buy Chelsea down the road, and then they were going to dive into this massive football splurge on players, and it all lined up right at the perfect time where we had to get rid of a bunch of old, washed-up dead weight. It's impossible.
Yeah. It's not impossible, but it's highly improbable, and I think it's
so unlikely for it to line up on the perfect summer where we needed to balance our books. It's absolutely ridiculous to even think it actually happened that way.
I would actually have to agree with Eric, but I also think there's a bigger thing here. It's a non-starter. And let me give you another totally outside of football, right? Last year and a half ago, before Musk bought Twitter, right? There's a lot of talk about was Twitter right? Was Twitter wrong? How much censorship? Because it's dangerous. I was a journalist, and I think the dangerous world we live in the censorship world is very dangerous. Let me give you one example. They hired a company. They hired Reuters to basically be the independent review group for the stuff that was happening re-COVID misinformation or whatever that was. And I know, but I want to give you a prime example. When they went looking, there was a guy who is now on the Reuters Foundation, so an independent. He's there for the Reuters feel-good side of things. He was 15 years at the top of Reuters. They were given the contract, and he was also a non-executive director of Pfizer. This kind of thing happens all the time.
Every day.
If you get too frustrated by it, you'll never enjoy life. How I see life, and you know how I enjoy it? I enjoy the football I enjoy knowing that I'm going to see JP and the lads in
That's
July
it.
for the Villa meetup. I enjoy doing the podcast. I don't worry about it anymore because if we are being controlled, everything's control, whether it's what we put in our bodies, whether it's the sport we watch, whether it's the Saudis trying to get
It's
into
always been this way too, Luke. This is nothing new,
100%.
right? Like,
This
watch
isn't-
a season of Succession and you'll understand how the world works. Like, this is nothing
Yeah.
new. It's always been, and you scratch my back, I'll scratch your back at the people at the very top with the most money.
Of course.
It's always been like that. This isn't a new thing, and it's not going to change. Has it infringed into sports, in particular football, and is it making it a little bit less enjoyable and definitely less competitive? Of course, JP, we all see that. There's nothing we can do about it because we're not one of those people at the top with billions and billions and billions of dollars. It's unfortunate.
I'll come back to this point here quickly. We'll I think wrap on this, but Paul in the comments just with fire. Gotta love Paul. The investment in the SPL didn't just happen. It would have been planned since before the World Cup. They absolutely could have sounded out more moves to Chelsea players and their agents. So yes, there is a chance, but again, I think it's a non-starter because it just so happens that Chelsea need this. And are Chelsea to blame for what the Saudis are doing? No, like that they would do this whether the Saudis were involved or not. So I think I do agree. I'm not on this whole Eric Chelsea witch hunt. I think it's a little unfair.
And
Hold
JP,
on, hold on. Last
you
comment
still
from
need
me
the
on this.
player to agree to a move.
100%.
Exactly.
And we're not
has a
getting
very
and we're not
good
getting
point.
these massive fees. They're actually when they come out, you'll see how small they are. We're not making money
100%.
on these transfers.
That's not to
I
say
think you gotta-
Chelsea
you can't-
isn't edging players saying
But
you
hold on,
should
JP.
take this deal or else we're just not playing you. You're going to play with the U18s.
They're not playing
Because
any of
that-
those guys.
They
Can't make it a
literally-
Chelsea thing. Pretend if it was United. Pretend if it was Arsenal. Take Chelsea out of the equation. I do think, and you are glossing it over a little bit, Luke. I do think if there is interest from different ownerships in a different league and there's a relationship there, that is problematic. Forget that it's Chelsea. If what Paul wrote there is
100%.
accurate, that's where there's smoke, there is fire. Forget Chelsea. Forget whatever team it is. That's not a good thing for football. That's bad.
No,
If what he
The
Oh,
question
we
was
lost him.
asked during the takeover.
That's scary.
The
That's
question,
very scary.
the Premier League actually sent a letter to us, to Clear Lake, while the sale process was happening, to explain that relationship with the Saudis and how it wouldn't interfere with Newcastle. And it was actually done. And
They were super honest.
so that was another backdoor deal that they paid the
Fuck
auditors that were going through that sale process.
If,
They had to agree to that
Well,
sale.
honestly,
if it
True,
came out that
yeah.
there was cheating, that there was sports washing, what is the punishment? Expulsion from the
there
league?
isn't going to be one. There isn't going to be one. I'll tell you why, JP. And this is the thing you need to wrap your
Money
head around the most.
talks.
The Premier League. The Premier League, you know what they want? The people who run the Premier League, you think they're football fans? They're not. They're money fans. They want more injection in the Premier League so they can get bigger bonuses, so they can make more money and they can have their other side deals where they're going to
I
scratch
don't
each other's
understand
back
how
and
they
get paid.
don't. I don't understand how they don't realize the stronger all 20, all 30, all 50 teams that could come and go are, the better the league is. The better the league is, the more the money is.
You know the answer. You just don't like it.
He doesn't like it. He doesn't like
That
it.
doesn't mean it's
He
right.
doesn't.
I know how
On
American
that note-
politics.
on that
I know how
note,
American
I
politics
agree.
work. Doesn't mean I like it.
We're gonna move on. I think
Same.
How
we
many
could be
more
at this for
slides do we
ages.
have? Jesus.
We could have this. So let's just wrap up and with a bit of a chat on some of the big movers,
Yes,
shakers
no, yes,
as it is.
no.
I think the Kovacic to City. It's a really strange deal. I suppose it
smart
makes
move.
Great deal.
sense. It's a great deal, great
Great deal for
player.
City.
But they must be kicking players
Great deal
out.
for
No?
Chelsea.
Are we seeing a Calvin Phillips
Phillips
out the door?
Calvin Phillips said he's staying. He's not going anywhere. You know why? 'Cause he
It's
wants to collect a
Gundogan,
paycheck.
dude. Gundogan's out, so Kovacic
He's-
goes in. Kovacic will take the Gundogan role, and everything
Different
works.
players.
They are different players, but I think a lot of the things that Gundogan did, besides scoring the goals, I think Kovacic could do. And I think he's a very well-rounded player. I don't necessarily think anyone looked great at Chelsea this year, kind of like Kai Havertz, but I think he is kind of like Kai Havertz, and I think there's more to them than we have seen in the last 2 years,
Yeah.
and I think he could be great for City.
Ask Eric. He was the most for me.
Any
the
Chelsea
most
fan
under-
will tell you, a true Chelsea
Yeah.
fan will tell you, Kovacic's one of our best players. Technically,
most
phenomenal.
underappreciated player at Chelsea in the last
he
2
works,
years.
he
is
dribbles, he can
Kovacic
pass,
by
he
a
doesn't
mile.
score.
Yeah.
That's okay, right?
He's not
It's
meant
not
to.
his job to score. He does everything
Treated
else at
unfairly.
such a high level. He's good in the
Treated us
dressing room.
fairly
He's
at
a
Chelsea.
worker.
Yeah.
Easy
Yeah.
to coach.
Great signing. Great
A
signing.
great signing. What was the price? I think 25 million.
25, 30 million.
Yeah.
It was great business. He's got 5 years of good football in front of him, right?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
He walks in, good professional, easily coach. Will walk right into that team. He's going to be phenomenal there. We lose.
Masterclass by Pep.
Sticking
lose the
on
captain.
Chelsea. Sticking on Chelsea. Is it Casado? I'm saying that right, from Brighton.
Caicedo, yeah.
Like, he's a great player. The money that Brighton are pitching, I think, is a bit obscene. Eric, if you were to sign this guy for 65, 70 million,
80,
how would you feel?
Dude. 80.
Wow.
It's going to be more. It's going to be 80 to 100.
Correct.
Wild.
I'm sorry. He's not worth that. He's not worth that.
Very good.
The second
Very
Declan Rice, signs for whatever fee, that's going to be the fee.
Cucurella all over again.
Guys, I'm telling you something right now. It's not. You'd rather have Caicedo than Declan Rice. Caicedo does everything. And
He's
he
a
never
great
stops
player.
running.
You've seen
You know what he
guys
is?
constantly,
Dude,
guys come out of Brighton that don't perform.
He's in N'Golo Conte Part 2, man. He really is. He's the goods.
That's a
Coach
huge
and,
claim.
I will say,
Where did Brighton
Comes
finish
out,
this year?
doesn't play.
Where did
Cucurella
Brighton finish
comes
this
out.
year?
That's not the point, dude.
He's the
Look at
reason.
the people. Look at the people.
the
Look at the
reason.
guy. Wait, let me go through this. Potter, failure. Right? Cucurella, failure. Basuma, failure. That center back, failure.
McAllister, Liverpool.
It hasn't played out yet.
Yeah,
Everybody who's come out of Brighton does not transition well near the price tag.
I'd kill for Caicedo. Not for
I
it.
get it. I would love Matt Villa. But these numbers that are going with these Brighton players are, if you got, like, how is nobody watching this to just say no?
This number is too high. This number
It's
is too high.
insane. 50 million
50
tops.
He's 50 to 60, this 80 to 100, which is what their Chelsea are gonna pay it.
yeah.
'Cause they don't have a clue.
So, and
Way
this
too
is
high.
still-
I think
But
he's a
then
more
he-
interesting player, though. I think
he's
he's
through the roof.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's a phenomenal player. I have seen him play, and he is great. It just, I think I'm still struggling with just the obscenity that the money's at these days. But I suppose based on the conversations we had, it makes sense. However, I think a more interesting player from an international perspective and heritage-wise, I'm thrilled that he's coming through, is Evan Ferguson. Young 18-year-old. You saw what he did in the league.
He looked great.
They didn't want to over. I think there's already big names linked to him. If someone was to go at him for 50, 60 million, I think that's a really good bit of business because he's 18.
a little unproven though. Give him another full season where he's getting regular minutes to see if he can do the goods. Like 50 million for a guy who doesn't start every week for me, guys, is genuinely fucked up.
Not when he's 18.
Tony talks.
It's still a risk though. Like just because he comes in, plays a couple games, show me him playing a full season, banging in 15 goals. I'll give you your 50.
He's not a guy who scores 15. He's going to be a 10 to 15, but he's a big lad. He brings in other guys. He's skillful. He's a guy who creates by bringing two, because he needs two guys to mark him.
He needs to play regular football, and let's see what kind of player.
100%.
A little early for Evan. A little early.
That's a fair point. It's a fair point. But I think, he scored, 6 goals last season. He got 3 in the FA Cup, 1 in the FL, 1 in the FL Cup. 16. He scored 16 goals in 34 appearances, including Premier League 2. I could see the argument going for that kind of money. But we'll see. I think there's some big names. And then I don't even know who's this.
Mason Mount.
Chelsea. Is that Mount? Is it? I didn't even recognize it.
The guy going to United, that's Mason Mount.
Yeah.
I think he's the only one that's actually being valued at the numbers being talked about. 50 to 55.
He's got 1 year left on his contract, and they won 80 million.
Maybe a
They
little.
won 80 million.
You're going to get him for 55.
What do you think? End of the week, 60 million? Done tomorrow?
Apparently we're gonna go, but I'm upset at that. Like 60 million for a guy who's got 1 year left on a deal. It pisses me off. It should be 430.
Money talks.
You should.
That one.
I'd be hardballing.
United are going to drag that out till the end of August.
No, they want it.
It's going to be Russian roulette with Chelsea, and we're going to end up paying them 70 million in August. That's what's going to happen.
And you guys really don't have a lot of money to spend either until then.
Yeah, trust me.
Well, you do if that.
Yeah, talk to me in a couple of weeks, and we'll see who owns the club at that point. But,
Is that going to go through anytime soon? Am I going to make some money?
I don't want to hear another thing about it.
So apparently Ten Hag's losing his mind, and apparently there's no sanction for movement until it's completed.
No. Why would the Glazers want to lose?
I think the Glazers are trying to squeeze more money out of the Saudis. It's getting really embarrassing. It's getting ugly. hopefully in the next week or two. And then I think if it's not, you're going to start hearing from the manager in a very negative fashion.
100%, and I hope he does. But listen, gents, I'm going to take it back to the start. I'll just say thank you for joining us. You guys have been fantastic. JP California, David Convery, never a pleasure. Oh, that's a lie. Always a pleasure, never a chore, I was meant to say. And Eric, listen, I know your availability isn't always amazing, but it's always great to have you, and it's great to get a grounded take on Chelsea and someone that isn't just 100%. Firing off at all cylinders. JP California,
ban from the league, ban them.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay, gentlemen. Listen, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, and
please like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe,
later, boys.
Regular
Thanks,
content, and we'll be back soon. Be good.
Take care.
This is the North End. This is the North End.